And welcome. We are live. I'm really excited. It's Blonde here from the Vortex Healing Center, and we've got Dr. Liam Burke here with us today. And Liam is a chiropractor, and he's done a lot of energetic work. And that's in particular why I wanted to have this chat with him today, because it's something that I've thought about for so many years, how particularly people who do manual manipulation, whether it's acupressure or acupuncture or chiropractic or any other type of thing, why aren't they using more energetic practices more often, since it seems like such a natural fit? You know, you don't just need the energy work. Sometimes you physically need something to physically move. And we had a great opportunity to meet Liam a couple weeks ago, and we were just chatting because I said, Liam, how did we even get connected? So welcome, Liam, and let us know how did you find out about the Vortex Healing Center?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, so it was a practitioner that I was talking to, one that I use who's up in Melbourne, and she was saying that one of her clients that she had been to you guys, and so she was giving me some advice. Her name's Anna, the practitioner I use, and she was giving me some advice, and she's like, okay, so one of the things that would be really good for you creatively is to just go into a space where you're not in the hustle and bustle of the city, where you can actually get out of that cloud, if you will. So just go up some sort of mountain somewhere and just go find a space where you can just sit for a bit, you know, pull out a piece of paper. That way you can write stuff down. And I've been doing this and it's been so effective for me personally. This is just something that's for just getting some really creative ideas down. That's one of the ways that I work. So she was talking about different, you know, places that she could do this. She said, you know, there's this Vortex Healing Center that I've heard of in the northeast of Tassie, and that's a really grounded space. It's certainly, you know, there's a little labyrinth there that you can walk through, and you can just sit, and you don't even have to do anything, and you just notice that by doing that, you're being the real soup of it. So you'll have a lot of clarity come through when you do that. And I think that's certainly what happened. I just rocked up there, and I've ended up, you know, just having this whole snowball with meeting you guys and having so much come from that. So there's certainly more than I bargained for, that's for sure.
That's really awesome. So you did your uni at RMIT, and now you're actually practicing your chiropractic in Hobart. Is that right?
Yeah. So I was practicing in Melbourne for a while, but this year I wanted to get out of the city. Melbourne's, you know, a bit busier for a country guy like me. So yeah, I've come down here to Hobart, and I love it. It's I won't say the best place in the world, but for me at the moment, it's really, really good. And Tasmania is just something else. It's really, really special.
Yeah, nice. And so tell me a little bit about the energetic work you did with Dr. Fred Swan with Integral Energetics.
Yeah, so it probably took me about 8 years to do my studies all up. I did the 5-year chiropractic, the degree, and then just last year I did quite a bit of work with a psychotherapist, which was really, really wonderful, and that helped me figure out a few things. And then in between there, I did a particular course that was called Integral Energetics. It was a 2-year long course. It's running in Melbourne at the moment. Yeah, definitely worth searching up Integral Energetics, and with Dr. Fred Swan, and John Hare also does that with him too. They're both chiropractors, and they were really looking at how can they put together something that's, you know, more than just a little snippet of this kind of thing. Kind of work that they started to branch into that was a little bit similar to the type of chiropractic that we do. That's a much more energetic kind of chiropractic. It's a real emerging space. Yeah. So they've looked and they've gone, okay, well, what other pieces of knowledge can we draw from, and how can we present this in a 2-year package? So that's the course that I did. The way that I try to describe it to people is it's really looking at state-based changing healing. That's a real emerging area also in you know, different psychotherapy practices. It's interesting when you'd go through some of this mind-based, body-based healing from a psychotherapy perspective. A lot of the people that would get it were the people who had done this kind of work, where they realized that you can't just change your thinking without your body. It doesn't work.
Yeah, they're clearly linked in
Mm,
ways that we want to pretend sometimes that they're not, but
mm,
you can't ignore one or the other.
mm. So what I like to say to people that's really basic is when your body's really tense, your mind's noisy. So what does that mean? It's like, okay, well, what happens if you can relax your body and still your mind? Then you can actually just be yourself. You're not reacting, responding to anything, from yesterday or a few days before, something that's gotten your back. You can just go forward and do the things that you need to do. You have more calmness, more clarity, more creativity because you're just relaxed and you're just being yourself.
Yeah, that's for me a really rare concept coming from a chiropractor. I'm used to
Mm,
a lot of them, crack and go, bing, bang, boom, and you're out
mm,
the door, right?
mm. Yeah, well, I think it's just more of the essence of what chiropractic is. I would still manually adjust someone where it's appropriate, and I do a lot of that work down here in particular. In Hobart, I find that I do the two and offer the see. Some people don't want one, some people don't want the other. So, but when you're working with a joint that's really stuck, and you get
Yeah,
that moving again, then it helps get the stress that's locked up in that joint out of the body. But I think to understand that, you have to realize that. When I talk about stress, my definition of stress doesn't come out of nowhere. Illness doesn't come out of nowhere. So if you just kind of pause that concept and think about what's really going on, when you starting with you and your experience. So if we can use this kind of language because of the podcast we're on, when you're just really present and you're in the moment, you're completely responding to exactly things as they are
yeah,
until you deviate from that place. You're just being yourself.
yeah.
So when you experience overwhelm, that's when you start to deviate. So it's really, really basic. Stress starts with you. And my definition of it is it's just an experience of overwhelm. And then it
So
starts
I
and it
was
starts in
watching
the
actually a
body. The
couple,
body's the first bit. Yeah, go on.
yeah, a couple of your TikTok videos, which I thought were really good. Two of them I thought were really
Right.
awesome.
Mm.
And you use that phrase a lot about the body being in overwhelm. How do you describe that? Is that just, do you view that as the first layer of what happens
Mm.
before illness or before a blockage occurs?
There's a really very easy way that everyone can identify when they're heading in the wrong direction, right? When how
Yeah,
illness comes, where it comes from. But you're asking me what exactly do I mean by that overwhelm? Well, let's just experience for it. So if people are listening to this, what they can do is just close their eyes for a moment and just imagine that they're at home on the couch, and then suddenly there's a big banging at the door, and there's someone banging in there saying like, this is the police, open up. And so suddenly when you notice how you got like really tense and you stop
yeah,
breathing,
yeah,
that's the first thing that happens. People don't notice the tenseness and the shortness of breath necessarily, but what they do notice is when that sticks around, then that leads into changes in their eating and sleeping.
yeah,
When that sticks around, that leads into either tightness in the chest. So that would be, how anxiety feels in the body, before you get into the whole diagnosis or whatever. But just that feeling, that kind of body feeling, tightness in the chest,
yeah.
or heaviness in the body. So that's that feeling of depression more in the body. It's just
Mhm.
a heaviness. So you've got experience of overwhelm, and then changes with eating and sleeping, and then they lead into your chest being really tight or your body being really heavy. And then after that point, that's when you build into things that I don't deal with so much, but that's when your emotions start to lock up. That's when you move out of the body into issues that get into the mental sphere. So where your body locks up so much that your emotions, you become emotionally numb. You've got PTSD issues coming on from there. And then after that, where you're avoiding something, you've got a fear of something. So it's a phobia, mental illness kind of thing. And after that, is where you get, your whole system is shut down to the point where it can't function as well. So chronic illnesses and physical illnesses present themselves. And
Yeah,
anything that comes along that cycle, you've got to make sure that you go back to the work out the knots, and then make sure that you also come back into a really relaxed state. Because if your joints are really tight, even if you deal with something that's in that other end of the spectrum, like say you have a chronic illness and you need to deal with the functional, wellness around the environmental health, you need to look at the things that are really affecting you. If you've got an autoimmune condition, what are the triggers of a migraine, for example? you can deal with that, and then you can deal with the emotional component of something that's built up. But then the third thing that you need to really do is make sure that you can actually release it out into your body until you actually have full breath coming through, until you can come back into being yourself and being present and having that stillness and that relaxed body.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. So I have a million questions related. Let's just start with the questions related to the breath work, because you've mentioned that a number of times.
Mhm.
Do you use that breath work as a part of the practice that you do?
So I'm a network spinal practitioner, and that's the type of chiropractic that I do.
Okay.
Yeah, and network spinal chiropractic is, in my opinion, just so gold. Don't get me down that rabbit hole, or I'll start,
No,
tooting
no,
its
no. We
horn
want
too
to hear
much.
it. This is exactly what we want to hear.
Yeah, well, so Dr. Donny Epstein created that. He's it's quite big these days. You'll see the events for it. Someone like Tony Robbins uses it every single day. That's the like thing that he does in terms of it. And so, like it's not a small thing anymore. But it's going, well, hold on a second. What if instead of going to the area where it's really stuck and getting the stress out of the joint so that the person can actually, what if we can just go to where it is moving, go to where there's more available energy, if you want to use that move, that word, and then get that to go through the whole body. So that's really basic. You just get a little bit more space in through the joints, and then suddenly everything moves properly. You've got more energy that going through. Yeah, so how does that happen? Okay, if you give me a good few minutes here, just to nerd out a little bit.
Yep, it's all yours.
Yeah, so what we found when we started to work with that from a chiropractic perspective, going to these areas where there was this tight all around it, but in the middle was this perfect muscle tone. You could just activate the brain to copy that motor pattern through the whole body. What we found is the way that it did that was, if you can imagine with me a really still river, right, where there's like, it's a canal, and you get these barges that pull up in the port in front of the river, and they up into the dock there. What happens is this wave of water goes up the canals, and you can see it. It's a standing wave. So if you've got a river, the wave just travels through it, so that you get this little hump of water that travels all the way along, and that's what your breath does. With this technique, it's a psychosomatic wave is the name of it. It's the research around it is fascinating. Gosh, it seems to be something that's even faster than your nervous system, which doesn't really make sense. Except it does, but to most people it doesn't really make sense. How can you have your body activate faster than what your nerves can simultaneously? It's fascinating. But so this travels through people's body, and what that does is it gets rid of any trauma locked in the body vibrationally, which is just another way of saying that the joints are really locked. So it as that moves through, the stress and the energy that gets locked in the spine, it just comes out.
Nice. That's fantastic. I think that type of release. So for you, is it the emotional release is happening first, and then the joint is released, or the joint is released and the emotional release happens? Which comes first?
Which
the chicken
comes
or the egg?
The chicken or the egg? Well, I think if you just bring it back to that stress cycle I just spoke about.
Yeah.
So where do the emotions start locking? If you want to get really technical about it, technically everything is a type of emotion. Emotion's just a fancy way of saying that we're feeling something. So it's your feeling. So it's just sensation. You can have a sense that, like right now, if I kind of lean back funny, I can feel it's something a bit weird in my gut. I don't know what it must be for the breakfast I ate, right? So that's a sensation. It's a sensation that's a bit uncomfortable. I wouldn't call it necessarily an emotion, but really it's a feeling that I'm getting. So it's a feedback going on. The same when I go into a crowd of people and there's a weird atmosphere. It's not really my emotion, but it's a feeling. So that these are all just different words we can use for energy, if you want to use that term, which can be a bit convoluted sometimes, but I think probably in this space quite grounded, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that energy of it is, emotion's just a different name for that, moving, and your ability to feel that. When does your feelings from a more of a emotional perspective lock up? That happens the whole time, but it really happens after, say, your chest gets tight or your body gets heavy. That's when you move into a sadness or a guilt or anger, and that's when you get all this kind of hang up coming through. So which one releases first? It would depend on what the person's going through, but until it releases from the body, then you haven't released the emotion. And if it builds up in through the body, then it can affect the emotions. So yeah, it's certainly not. Yeah, if you see how it actually works in a human body, which is the joints locking up first, and this tightness building up, and then this emotional lockup, then you can see that what the way that releases is the same, ways that the ocean moves. Like it's very, it's not just like, oh, it's this concept and then this concept. It's like, no, that's just how human works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And do you have the same ease of working with a patient, whether they have a chronic illness versus a specific injury?
It totally depends on the person.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people end up going towards something that's more state-based and more of an internal work, which is what network spinal is. They go towards that because they need that deeper relaxation that they can't necessarily get just by focusing on something that's a bit more external. So from that perspective, a lot of chronic people really need the network spinal stuff more than anything else. Whereas if you just kind of have hurt a bit of a tendon, then you can just get some different manual therapy or different exercises or different casting or protection from that perspective, which is stuff that we do too and work with, and say if it's back pain and that kind of thing, that's all in the same. But really what matters most is people's personalities. If someone has a very strong mind, they're easy to work with because you can just get so much stress out of their system. All this stress that builds up, you get to sometimes in different ways, you can notice it as you get rid of it. So that's why people are like, oh, that's a bit much. They're like, they'll start crying, or like they don't want to go there. So you have to, as a practitioner, really be very respectful of what people's goals are and go at their pace. And be a bit of a coach and encourage them and push them a little bit sometimes, or more so if it's something that's particularly important. But that's what matters most is people's fortitude. Like someone like you just be so like, yeah, I've done this kind of stuff before, like let's just get to it. And it happens quite quickly. But if someone's really tied up in the chronic space, they've got a lot more going on. They're going to need a bit of a team around them to work through a few things. Which so then I just really focus on my lane, just getting people to have a bit more breath come through and more relaxed.
And so the work you've done with Dr. Fred Swan with the, what is it called?
The integral energetics, yeah.
Yeah. How do you relate those two, or do you want to give us a quick idea of what his work is? I know he talks a lot about the various layers of energetic body surrounding the body. Is that still something you incorporate into your practice, or you're primarily doing this other network spinal?
I for me, they've just they're all in me. So when I'm working, I'm just working basically. Yeah. And to talk more on the integral energetics perspective, some people might look at it and they might say, oh, well, that actually looks really similar to the network spinal chiropractic. When you really look at the tone of it and the practice that Dr. Fred's doing, there's a lot of similarities because he learnt the network spinal chiropractic as well, or the older version. The network spinal analysis is what he did, and he was excellent at doing that. But he really just it's probably something that's a bit more of a niche question in terms of the difference with that. I think as someone going, you wouldn't be able to pick the difference if you were just a client, but it's very, very noticeable. He's an excellent practitioner in Melbourne. He's just in Kew. If there's anyone who's in Melbourne, highly recommend visiting him and seeing what that's all about. But both of them focus mostly on, okay, how can we really work with the person to bring them out in getting them into, I don't know if you realize this, but the tone and tension of your spine influences the tone and tension of your life. So when I was talking about that before, the joints locking, that people start to be in a different position. It's because of what's going on internally in the spinal cord. The spinal cord's the thing that goes around all the nerves that travel down from your brain into all your organs, muscles, tissues, and joints. So that spinal cord is it's literally like a tube. And when the top in through here gets stretched, the bottom also gets stretched. And stretching a tube means that there's less blood flow that can go through. Nerves hate to be stretched. So your body will go into different postures just to keep as much of that in a good position as possible. But what happens with that is it has to unbalance itself just to try to keep you as much of you as possible. So to get more balance, that what you need to do is, if you want to feel more balanced, is have a session of chiropractic where you can actually get that balance in through the tubing, that spinal cord itself, which just makes you feel more relaxed, more clear, calm.
Yeah. So is this all done through your words and your manual manipulation, or is there special music or something that helps, or is it?
It's more the feeling that people go through, that there's not something specific in terms of you have to do it this way. It's like anything that anyone's experienced, what makes them feel most themselves, what makes them help them to relax. You just have little tunings in that. But in terms of what the actual body work side of it is.
Shit. Hang on a second. Oh,
yeah.
Fuck. Excuse me. I'm going to just double check and see if this actually went live. Hang on. Oh my goodness. I'm just seeing something pop up that's saying, where is it? Oh no, we're good. We're all good. Sorry. False alarm.
That's fine. Just a small technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was I saying there?
So we were talking about, I'd asked you about whether you sound as well as part of the practice, or
you absolutely could, but it's not specifically part of the body work. The body work, all you have to do is use very, very gentle touches on the person's body in a very specific way. It's mostly, if you want a little bit of insight on how that works, it's actually mostly what the way that you're doing that and the state that you're in as a practitioner that helps them enter into that state. But that's probably more technical that I'd share with
I
with
could
most
see
people.
for a practitioner, it's not the routine like everybody, do everybody the same kind of way, like line this up, line that, press here, press there. It really does involve you being much more in tune with what's going on.
And that answers your question. You said, why don't more people do it? It's really hard. You have to learn how to regulate your own internal state.
Yeah.
That is almost impossible if you have not done enough of, like I went and got work done with Fred so much just to get me into this place, and had to do a lot of, the shadow work, that deeper kind of work, had to use a lot of different other practitioners. There's a whole story there in what was necessary to actually, and the training really brought things up. Like it was not just like, so if you move this way and you move this way, you'll get this movement getting into this person, and this is how you figure out which movement they need. That's the chiropractic side of things. It's so much harder to actually apply it from a light work or an energy perspective. That really requires you to have that sensation of that feeling. You have to be able to feel that, and you have to develop that sense organ. So it's a different kind of sensing that you have to work through.
How do you, or are you able to turn off that empathetic and energetic thing when you're at the local coffee shop, for example?
Yeah, it's not easy. but yes, absolutely. That's part of the training. It's just like a muscle.
Yeah.
And it's not something that is unique to that work that you do. hone it to understand the connection that has to literally specific movements in the people's bodies. So we see particular defense patterns, or all this kind of terminology and how are people's muscles getting up, and we know what that feeling is, and we know which feeling we have to bring through, but it's not, we don't think of it in terms of feeling, because we put a whole lot of technicality around it, and we have quite clear, okay, this is this particular work we're doing with, this is more of, okay, there's a different dynamic ongoing here. Okay, this is a different dynamic. So this is going to work on a different system in through the body. Okay, this is yet another one. And there's different layers of that. And you have to be quite specific with it from that sense. But it is not different to say, things that you would have seen, or anyone listening would have experienced, where, they empathize with someone. They watch something that you can, even like, if you look at a plant and you can see how healthy and vibrant it is. And then you look at another plant and you're just like, oh, that one looks a bit sad. And you'll use that word. And it's like, it's not literally, like a human sadness per se, but it's very different. It's very, and that's something that happens with people, with dogs, with animals, with humans. So it's just that. And, if you don't pay attention to what's going on with that plant, then it doesn't bother you so much. But you are right. Then doing this work, I did get very, very finely attuned to those kind of things, which has its own difficulties. That's for sure. I wouldn't wish it on most people. I think anyone who does this kind of work
thinking to myself, like how much clearing you need to do to make sure that you're able to turn it back off and release anything
every night,
come up that's not yours.
Every morning, every night.
Yeah.
And during the practice as well, you have to be very, just aware of things, more and more present. But that becomes its own teaching. I think that's a good Eckhart Tolle line. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. This person is like, it's so unconscious of what's going on. Like, it's very hard to do. But then that becomes your lesson as well. You go like, oh, okay, hold on a second. How can I stay present even when that person's, off with the fairies flip-flopping around?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So, how do you see it playing out? Does the rest of the other chiropractors in the practice that you're at now, are they also using this same type of techniques, or?
Unfortunately, I'm the only one in Tasmania. I just moved down this year, and no one was practicing it down here. Which I'm quite sad about, because I miss it. I miss it a lot. I have to fly to Melbourne to see Fred. It's hard. Because I really
Can't
really
share exchange
because
sessions,
getting it myself is what helps me stay clear. But it's life does as well. So there's different therapies you can use, like getting into nature and those kind of things.
It sounds like you're going to give a trial and stop by and do some sessions in the St. Mary's area. Is that true?
Yes. So that's something we've just organized, and I've just put it live as of this morning on the website. So there you go. I'm looking forward to coming through and doing a few sessions in St. Mary's. You've just opened up and cultivating this space behind the post office.
Yeah, the wellness space where the old Commonwealth Bank was. So so stay tuned. Everyone on the east coast of Tassie is going to be able to have access to Dr. Liam Burke as well. And I'm sure the Hobartians are thrilled to have you down there.
Yeah, it's been really nice, and it's been the best reception down here in Hobart, because people just get it. People in Tasmania get it. Yeah. In the city, it's kind of like, whoa, it's like it's a bit different, but here people are just like, oh yeah, okay, I see what's going on. Yeah, no, I feel that. All right, cool. And like people are just like, yeah, obviously, like who wouldn't want to be out in nature? You want to go have a hike later? Like people, it's different
atmosphere. How did you end up coming to Tassie? How did that happen?
That's the lifestyle I wanted. So here I am. I was like, let's go. And there's been a few other things that have really drawn me down here, but that's it in a nutshell. I just love it down here. It's the kind of special that you can't describe to people from any other part of the world. We call people back on the mainland of Australia mainlanders, from the mainland. When you grew up in Victoria, you'd never think that you were a mainlander, like it's like, is that a type of cheese, like it's a totally different concept. But the reason is because there's a separate energy down here in Tasmania. It's different. It's not
Yeah.
it's not a whole different culture necessarily, but it's unique. And I think the if you want a real heightened experience of why it's so unique, going to the Vortex Healing Center is definitely on the bucket list, because you go there and you're just like, oh, this is like so Tasmania. Like, it's the weird, like, you just go there, it's like, yeah, you just walk around and you're gonna feel better. You're gonna feel a lot better. All you have to do is walk around. We'll just have a bit of a chat. Yeah, I see this over here. And then you can talk about the more esoteric side of things. But it's just so Tasmania.
It is. And that is what we tell people. I mean, and it was called the Vortex Healing Center because it is healing just in and of itself. And it is much more impactful to actually just be present there. And you don't have to do anything. You could just stand or sit or walk or hum or sing or whatever you want to do. But the physical energy there, it's really hard to transfer that out. Even though Sue's done amazing work creating essences that encapsulate that, but it's we've tried really hard, and we charge up crystals so that energy can be imparted and shipped across the planet. But otherwise it's really challenging to package it up and send it off.
We use a term for that, which applies to a neurological phenomenon where you enter into a different state. We use the term entrainment. And it's a bit like, like, do you really need a word? But that happens, the best way to describe it is if you search up the video where you've got some metronomes and you put them all at different speeds, but you put them on the same, they can be all different, but the platform they're on is just moves a little bit with them, like it's just on a little bit of rollers. So you put all these metronomes on at different times, so it goes tick 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 tick, they're all ticking off, and then you'll see two of them, because they're next to each other, they start syncing up because of the movement, just the little movement of the platform underneath
just
them.
that vibration.
But on literally the vibration, it's not like, it's vibration, it's literally the platform moving. So when that happens, eventually, spoiler alert, all of them sync up and they all get into the exact same rhythm. And that's why we use the term entrainment when we give a particular session of this, that more gentle chiropractic technique, because we're in training induced state and that's what goes on too when you enter into nature, or you go up into a place where there's a very high energy, right? You're in training to it. It's a different.
I was just thinking, is this something that is only done on an individual basis, or could you do a group session?
Yeah, group session, absolutely. Yeah, you work with each person's spine, but when you do have a few people who are doing it at the same time, the whole energy of the place heightens. That's actually what I do here sometimes too. You have a couple of people, one in that room, one over here, and like, it's like the difference between listening to music with headphones on or going to a concert. The difference. Like, why do people want to go to concerts? It's because they really want to feel it. They want to be in the atmosphere of it. And that's what's going on at the healing center, right? That's what's going on with this kind of work. So yeah, there's pros and cons on those kind of things. Sometimes it's nice to just do headphones and just do something that's a bit quiet, but and I think that's what's so cool about something like nature itself, is that when you go out to there, it's so similar to you. And it's so personal. Like, you can go to a concert and not really like the group of people. You can do this kind of work and someone can be really going through something difficult. So sometimes it's better to, for them to go through something private, because that way, other people won't notice it as much. So it's a bit easier for them. But when you're in nature and when you're in a really beautiful place in Tasmania, for example, I cannot put it into words, but it's so, you just feel more yourself. You just feel better.
Yeah.
Because it is like you're not separate from nature, I suppose, if you want to go off on that tangent. But like, it's just so you. Very cool.
Yeah,
that's why awesome. in our practice we also have, like, I don't know how many. I'm here at the moment and I'm looking, and there's probably, I want to say almost 50 plants. We have a green wall of plants, two green walls. And yeah, we love that kind of thing. And nice. I don't think, the great thing about doing something like network is you can be a little bit more specific with it, in that you're working through a particular part of yourself that just, wants to come through. But when you go out into nature, you're just getting a big dose of yourself. So it's a way that you can do that kind of thing when you say in the city and you're in the hustle and bustle of things. And if there's something that maybe doesn't quite come through when you're in nature, you just do a bit of this work. And then when you go into nature, it's again a whole nother experience, because you're like, oh, I just feel more and more myself. So
sounds awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate you walking us through that. So I have a couple of actually, before we go forward, is there any suggestions you would have for people on how they can better take care of themselves?
Well, did you know that you're a donut? That's a I studied for 5 years in university, and the thing that struck me most was, I think, first semester anatomy, maybe the second semester anatomy. The guy draws up a picture of a donut and he said, "You are a donut." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" If you take a cross section of a human, obviously the outside is skin, but the name for that is it's epidural. Like it's so that same type of cells is also on your inside where you eat food. And that's the point that he was making, is that technically the outside is what you digest as well as what you put on your skin. So that's one side of things. Like, really make sure that when you put things in, you just have 80% of things, you have lots of water. So that's really important. To look after yourself, nature is really good. I mean, I think the thing, if you do those two things, again, to nature, just eat things that don't eat quite too much, and just see how you react to food and see what makes you feel good. That's a general, really common sense, easy one. Drink lots of water and really look at your breathing. I often recommend someone that take a breath and they'll go, it's not a breath. What's going on? It's very peculiar. Or someone will go like, really like start panting almost up in their upper chest. And if you remember, when I was doing the experience before, when there was the stressful situation, like that was the first place you started breathing, but then you relax back into yourself and your belly breathes really deeply all the way in, all the way out. So these are kind of things that if you just start to notice, and if there's a problem, but go get some help with it. And to be honest, even if you can't tell there's a problem, go get someone like me that come and check if there is as well. But really honing those fundamentals, good sunlight, particularly down here in Tasmania, but good sunlight is particular. Those things are just so crucial. And then the rest of it just becomes good emotional intelligence, where you're surrounded by people that you really like, and you foster those kind of relationships, and you make sure that if there's something that goes on, you go and get someone to call out your bullshit. If that needs to be a practitioner, then you get work with that, so that you can just know, oh, okay, this is anger, and that's related to that, but I can just actually do this with it and get rid of it, and I can actually express it rather than trying to compress it. Like these kind of things. That's essential. So good body work, good emotional intelligence, and then just the common sense things of really looking after yourself, being active, all those kind of good stuff is stuff that you shouldn't need a doctor like me to say. But the fact that I'm saying it should give you a reflection that it's based on the fundamentals of natural sciences, of the anatomy, of the physiology, of the neurology, of the, if you don't, put it this way, if you don't have proper blood flow to your different parts of your organs, they're going to die, because blood flow gives nutrients, it gives oxygen, and it takes away byproducts. So you've got to get blood flow into every single stuck joint, muscle, your whole system. If you're stressed, you'll have cold fingers. Like me talking a little bit, my fingers are starting to go a little bit cold, and right. That's like, okay, I'll go and relax in a second, it'll come back. So you got to make sure that you focus on relaxation in a way that is so much bigger than just like, like that's just what people do when it's, if they go to the spa, like that, like that's a luxury. It's not. To actually have that good blood flow and good blood supplies is the basis of health. So there you go.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I think a lot of us, myself included, there are things that we know we should be doing, and that We just need to do it more regularly.
And that's one of the questions I ask in initial consults. I'm like, oh, so what are you doing at the moment that's really good? Okay, do more of that.
Yeah. That's good.
You don't
And
need
you are a donut.
you
I'm
don't
gonna
need
keep that
doctory
one. That
practitioners
might be
to
the
just,
new title of the podcast.
your body is a donut. I like that.
You
Yeah.
are a donut.
You are a donut. You are a donut.
So I have some questions for you. You ready?
No, but let's do it.
Well, here we go. So, what impact have you seen for yourself from being this energetic chiropractic practitioner?
Everything. It's everything to me. Like not the occupation per se, but I've just been able to be more myself, and in ways that I didn't even know I could be more myself, and in ways that are suddenly not centered around myself, but it's like, like it's a bit of a sob story. My dad had to retire early because he had an autoimmune condition where his muscles would just feel sore. He couldn't get out of the chair sometimes, and that was that whole cycle I just talked about. So he was retiring when I was going into I was going through lectures and learning at that time about what was going on. So I just talked to him about what I was finding, and then he went and found a good practitioner and started things getting in the right direction, and that's still going on. So for me, my highest value is probably family.
Nice.
Yeah, no, it actually is. It's not probably, it is family. So it's helped them, and then the better you can be yourself. You can just be a nicer person to be around. So for me, that's really the two things that it comes down to. It just means that I can enjoy life more.
Nice. Nice. And so what is consciousness?
It's conscious. That is a good question. You see how I'm stumbling over that one. Because I think you could take it in so many different directions, but perhaps if you speak of it in terms of it's not really, if you have a ray of light come out of the sun, if you look back at the sun, you'd think, oh, well, I'm not that light, right? So it doesn't really work. A light bulb could not realize that it had a source. They couldn't look back on itself. Like, it doesn't really work. So when you talk about consciousness, you could put it into that same perspective. And I think that's what people are trying to tap in on. So you can't ever really necessarily know exactly what that is from a knowing perspective, because as soon as you try to say, oh, this is what it is, then you've turned it into something that's separate from you because you're trying to describe it. And then it comes into, duality, if you want to use that concept. So, from a Buddhist perspective, then it's this term of suchness, but anything used to describe it isn't it. Yeah, but then including that one as well, because it's also everything. So it's hard to. So the best answer I would find is it's just feeling. It's what you can sense and what your emotions are. You can see it, and that seeing is done with all your different senses. It's done with more subtle senses as well, and that kind of thing. You can see the results of it. So if you look at your emotions and your feelings don't lie. Sometimes you misinterpret them, but they don't lie. And if you can get into that, then that's I think would really get into the some people use the word God, and they use source, and they use these big terms, the universe, that try to touch on what that is, what that suchness is, and it's just that you can just feel it. You can feel it, and how can you know that is that, and it's not more kind of just like some other flippant thing that you're feeling? Well, that's why meditation's so good, because when you're in a deep meditation, then you feel the more of that. There's nothing else going on. It's just that's what's left behind. So there you go. That's a short answer, isn't it?
Well done. And so for you, Liam, where do you feel most at peace with yourself?
Home, sitting on my bed.
I thought you were going to say up on a mountain somewhere.
No, that's where I go to make sure I bring that back with me to home.
Okay, nice. Awesome.
Mm.
And what does your spiritual practice look like on a daily basis?
It's quite physical. I wake up and I'll do some meditation. I'll do some exercise. And that's probably what it turns into. But I use spiritual. I have a bit of a pet hate, to be honest, about people who think that spiritual practices should be something that you can only do if you're a monk. You know what I mean? Like, and I think there's something so much to be said about going through that process. There's nothing wrong with that. But what's not spiritual about the interaction that we're having? Like, people can convolute this idea. So I think something that's truly spiritual is inclusive of everything. It's just, but it's inclusive of everything and then some. You know what I mean? It's like a
are you
babushka
saying
doll,
like
but
just being connected with, I call it usually often the all that is when you're interacting with someone else, for example. Is
yeah,
that what you're,
yeah,
is that what
being
you're saying?
present, being yourself.
Exactly.
So yeah, of course I do practices to make sure that I keep me and myself as much as possible, and that would be that meditation or that exercise.
Nice. And what do you think happens when we die?
I'm not entirely sure. This is a big question, but I think after I've experienced the training that I've had to go through and notice that there's something that's more than just physical in terms of what you can sense when you really hone these things, and the experiences I've had, and if I kind of step away from my practitioner hat, and just look at, okay, what is that? Well, there's got to be something else that's not just physical. This emotion that you can feel that seems to have a tether and basis and is at its core something that's matter and physical and three-dimensional. That makes a lot of sense, but that's not all of it. So what happens when that goes away? I'm not entirely sure, but it would make sense to me that then there would be a bit more to the picture there. And I've spoken to so many people. My grandma talks about how she can always feel my late grandfather around. And when I go there too, it's the most normal thing, because you really can. And we were freaking my mum out the other day because the door opened and closed, and she always goes, "Oh, hi, Pat." Like, she always talks because she's like, "Oh, that's just him." And then my sister was there, and she's like, "Yeah, okay, that's him as well." And I'm like, "Yeah, yep." And then my mum was just like, "What are you guys talking about?" You know what I mean? So I wouldn't want to pretend I know for sure, but that makes the most sense to me. And makes more sense than any kind of belief of just like, oh, well, there's just blackness and that's the end of things. Like, your consciousness is just based only on the different neurons firing in your brain. It's like, no, I think they're a receiver. If I had to hang my hat on something, I would, and I've listened to very good neurologists talk about this, and they would also hang their hat on that your brain is a receiver of that consciousness, and it's a conduit of it. It's not the source of it.
I like that simplification of it, if you allow me to say that, because that makes a whole lot of sense to be able to explain it physiologically and neurologically, as well as saying it's still way out there. It's out there, and then we happen to integrate it here with this physical body.
Exactly. Yeah, and the physical body is great because it doesn't lie. It's down into like matter. So sometimes you can misunderstand some of the big stuff, but when it's physical, it's like, well, this is definitely a mouse. Like, that's definitely what that is. Like, I'm touching it and poking it, and it's there's a bit less of the misunderstanding around stuff that's physical and with the body. So that's why I love working in this space. Keeps me nice and grounded.
That's nice. And what's the best way for people to reach you who want more info, would like to book a session with you in Hobart or here in St. Mary's? Yeah,
so you can find me on my socials at Dr Liam Burke. Burke is spelt like the Irish way, Burke. You can also find me online, drliamburke.com.au. And I think we'll chuck up a link tree of all of those things into anyone who's watching this might be able to click on those things.
Yeah,
but that's my name.
I will add that to the Facebook and to the YouTube link.
Thank you.
And Liam, can you finish these sentences?
All right, let's go.
The world needs.
I think it means more people who are being themselves.
Nice. I believe in.
A lot. I believe in a lot of things. There's a lot of beliefs there. That's not a proper answer, but I'm going to stick with that one.
That's good. Love is.
Love is something that you do, when you're really caring and compassionate. That's what that is.
I would like to thank.
I would like to, probably my parents more than anything is who I feel the most gratitude for, and that's not anything in particular. That's everything.
Nice. I am ready to forgive.
Everyone is the first thing that comes into my mind, because I think that even if I can't, I'm ready to be like, well, you know what? I don't need to hang on to that. I'm just gonna realize that was an unconscious pattern, and off it goes. It's nothing to do with me. Yeah, and including myself.
And I want my legacy to be
fun. I want it to be really fun. I don't know what it's going to look like. It's probably going to be associated a lot with family, because again, that's my deeper values, a bit about myself. But yeah, I want it to be fun. Yeah, it's got to have a little bit of liveliness to it. Yeah, maybe something around salsa dancing. That could be good.
That sounds great. Well, listen, we really appreciate your time today, Dr. Liam Burke, who is what do you actually call yourself? I was going to call you an energetic chiropractor, but what do you call yourself?
Yeah, I'm a chiropractor who's working with the real emerging chiropractic. This particular realm of things it's a bit harder to do in terms of training in the more of the sensitive kind of things. So yeah, I'm emerging chiropractor, I suppose.
Emerging chiropractor.
Emerging chiropractic, yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Any last words, anything we missed that you would like to share with the audience?
I just hope people have fun. And if they ever want to chat about things, I actually offer free chats to people. Just, 15 minutes if there's something that they've got questions about. So I'd extend that offer to people who have been watching this, if they just want to get in touch and just ask a question about something that came up, or just have something that they want to check in. I do that quite regularly. Just a free Zoom call with people that's pretty short, but it just allows people to check in and ask if there's something that's going on. I actually really love to do that. So it's good fun. So if people hesitate,
is that primarily through your socials? Through your social, through TikTok or Facebook or Instagram?
Yeah. I'll put a link up on my website where people can find that, and I'll put it up on the link tree that's in all my socials as well. The link, it's like Linktree / Dr Liam Burke. That's that link, it has all my different links in there. I'll put one up in through there with that one.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. We can't wait to see you back here in the area. Yeah, look forward to it. I'll see you down. I think it'll be next month, right at the start. So they're looking forward to it. Fantastic. See you then. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for your time.